You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we take you to Governor Rauner's, Governor-elect Bruce Rauner's first press conference. And that was held just 2 days after the election on November 6th at the Holiday Inn Chicago Mart. That's right across from their Merchandise Mart in downtown Chicago. We're taping this introduction on November 15th. You'll probably see it the week of, or this show the week of November 24th. So we wish you a happy Thanksgiving, an early happy Hanukkah, and a Merry Christmas, and a happy Kwanzaa, and a happy New Year's. Get all of those in. Look, the backdrop for this press conference that you're about to see was Governor Rauner's announcement of his transition team. And you're going to see some of those folks speak briefly who are on his transition team. You'll see some of them standing behind him. But the main thing to see is this is a pretty diverse group of folks. It's diverse in gender, diverse in race, diverse in age, and you've got some of the civic leaders that you'd expect to see. So I think this is it's a pretty good transition team. I don't know if I saw a supply sider there, Bruce, so if you don't have one there, I think you ought to have, out of 25 people, at least one supply sider. But seriously, Governor Jim Edgar's on the transition team. He's a good guy to have around. He certainly knows what's going on, and he's wise. And he wasn't there at that day, but he was there campaigning with Bruce the last few days of the race. Bill Daley is there. Bill is always good to have on your side. He's, of course, the son of Richard J. Daley, former longtime mayor, the brother of Richard M. Daley, another former longtime mayor of the city of Chicago. He was the White House chief of staff under Barack Obama. To Barack Obama, a high-level business exec. You always want Bill Daley on your team. And Bill's a good guy, and look, I'm telling you, he may not have been supporting Rauner, but he was predicting Rauner would win. How do I know? I just know stuff, So I'm telling you. And he was there. He's there on the transition team. Glenn Pichard's on the transition team, former Democratic congressman, former Democratic nominee for governor, former state senator, current Reverend James Meeks. He's on the transition team. He's there. You'll see him speak. He's a big time supporter of school vouchers, school choice, big time supporter of trying to improve the quality of education for kids of low-income African Americans. He's got still has a big Southside church. I think it's a congregation of 20,000. He's somebody you want on your side and advising you and helping you and providing networks. That's what this transition team does. Corey Brooks, he's on the transition team. He's minister of a black church on the South Side, the New Beginnings Church. He received some death threats for supporting Rauner, apparently, and he got that just happened the weekend before the election. His church was broken into, $8,000 was stolen. He's a supporter of school choice. He's a supporter of Bruce Rauner. He's a man who gave a long sermon, and it was a good sermon on don't bow down, don't give in, keep. This is right after his church was broken into. He said, stand up for what you believe in. Manny Sanchez, he's on the transition team. He's a managing partner of a small but very significant Hispanic law firm. Manny's a good guy to have on your side. He knows business, he knows law, he knows what makes the city work. He was co-chairman of Latinos for Barack Obama, so he brings some diverse ideology to that team. Jill Tracy, state rep, and former lieutenant governor running mate with State Senator Kirk Dillard when Kirk was running in the Republican primary in 2014 against Bruce Rauner. So showing, some diversity, some let bygones be bygones and working together, certainly with other Republicans, but also working with Democrats. So that's it. Top 5 things to know about Bruce Rauner, some of which you'll see, some of which you won't in the show. Look, this is a compassionate guy. I mean, he's been working for decades on school vouchers, school choice, charter schools, trying to do whatever he could to help improve the quality of education for low-income, for kids of low-income Hispanics, parents, and low-income African-American families. He's been out there working that community, not just because he was going to run for governor. He's been doing it because he and his wife, Diana, believe in that. He's a good guy. Really, we didn't support anybody, but I think we can say, he's been a compassionate guy. He's made a lot of money, but he's been trying to give back for a long time, not just when he decided to run for governor. He gets the basic economics. He gets about minimum wages. Look, he's a venture capitalist. He's been managing wealth, pension funds for labor unions, for government workers. He understands what makes the economy work. He understands demand and supply. He understands competition. And he knows, look, the way to help low-income people who don't have a lot of skills is not to raise their minimum wage. That just prices them out of the market. He understands it. But look, if you're running for governor these days, Democrat or Republican, you almost have to say you favor increasing the minimum wage. It's just the way it is. I think it's sad. I don't think it's helpful to these low-income people, but I'm not running for governor. Bruce is. But he does get basic economics. He wants to fix the very high unemployment in the black and Hispanic community. Some of these neighborhoods, some of these areas, you get unemployment like 30 to 50%. I mean, it's horrendous. Can you do something about it? We'll see. Next year, your state income tax, well, it went up in the last 4 years from 3% to 5%. Next year, it'll be lower. Of course, it'll have to go down by law if nothing's done on January 1, 2015 to 3.75%. Rauner wants to see it go down, wants to see it go lower. I think what he said is he'll get down to that 3.75, but not initially, not in that first year. What is it going to be? Well, he's going to meet with Senate President Cullerton. He's already started those meetings as I speak on November 15th. Meetings with Speaker Madigan. They're going to hash this out, but they're going to say, "Look, Mr. Rauner, you come up with a budget in January of 2015. You figure out what kind of tax revenue you need. You're essentially going to have to propose a tax increase." I understand they want him to wear the jacket, but let's see if he can make it as small of an increase as possible. I think he will. I think he will look to tax services as a way of making up for some of that shortfall. Initially, look, lower taxes lead to more economic growth, lead to higher income, lead to more tax revenue. But that takes a while, and so in the interim, you may not be able to make your income tax rates as low as you want. Anyway, that's an overview of what's going on with taxes. Long term, he's going to want major changes in the state employee pension benefits. They're way too costly. They're out of control. You got to move toward a 40. You got to move to, not toward, a 401k defined contribution, not defined pension plan. He wants to do that, but in the short run, the Supreme Court's going to hold these minor reforms that really were relatively minor, but would be helpful. The Supreme Court's going to hold them unconstitutional. They're going to say you can't tamper essentially with pension benefits at all. I mean, I think they're wrong. We'll see if I'm right that they're going to hold it unconstitutional. But if that happens and you can't move to a defined contribution plan quick enough to solve the problem, what do? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Maybe John Tillman would know at the Illinois Policy Institute. John, why don't you tell people what to do? All right, Bruce Rauner. The most important thing about to know about Bruce Rauner, he gets it. And you'll hear him talk about this. It's all about raising net family income, okay? Net of taxes, family income, getting people to increase their skills, increase their education, and longer term raise their income, shorter term try to raise their income. Maintain core government services, state government services. Everybody wants to keep education, not necessarily spend as much as we are, but to keep the quality good. Help make sure that low-income people have health care services. But, other than that, you got to cut back on things, and you got to empower people. You got to get the money to the individuals, let them make choices, I think this is what Bruce thinks. Enough from me. Enjoy the press conference and come back next week and every week to Public Affairs.
Bruce gave me just one very important task in leading this transition effort. First thing I had to do was find the brightest and most talented, intelligent people, not only in the state, but in this country. People who understood what it will take, what we need to make Illinois both compassionate and competitive. And now for our next speaker, Reverend James Meeks.
Of course, they put me on the timer. Let me say I'm Reverend James Meeks, and thank you, Evelyn and Bruce, and I'm looking forward to working with you, and I'm looking with you guys on the transition team. I met Bruce about 6 years ago, and we were scheduled to meet for 30 minutes, and we ended up meeting for 3 hours. And the meeting was all about education. Bruce wanted to know what are my ideas in education. And we talked for 3 hours about how to make the schools of the state of Illinois better. I had no idea that he would be standing here as governor, and now he really has a chance to try to make every school in the state of Illinois a better place. When he uses the words over and over, compassion and competitive, I really believe that Bruce Rauner has a heart to make sure that every child in the state of Illinois receives an equal, high-quality education regardless of their zip code. And I have promised him that I would do everything I could to help him make that a reality, because every child needs a decent school. The second thing that Bruce and I spend a lot of time talking about is jobs. Why is it that in America, every person who wants to go to work, why is it that they cannot find a job? And I believe that Bruce Rauner will stay awake at night trying to figure out how to make Illinois competitive and how to put every person in Illinois to work if they're not working. And I look very forward to working with he and Evelyn to accomplish those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend. And our last team member, Bill Daly.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. Let me, for one, say I'm glad they kept rubber meets on a time clock. Without a follow them, without a clock would be rather dangerous. It's an honor to have been asked to be here today, and I'm thrilled to help Governor-elect Bruce Rauner with his transition to the office of Governor of the great state of Illinois. As some of you know, I've worked in both the private and public sectors, and I've experienced just how critically important thorough preparation is for a seamless transition to power. I look forward to sharing my knowledge with Bruce and his team as they recruit the best and the brightest from the private sector into public service. For I firmly believe there is no greater privilege than to be able to serve the people of the state of Illinois. Bruce's love for Illinois and his competitive drive to make it great once again is second to none. But so is his compassion to those, as he stated, who are less fortunate than us. Those are two qualities everyone wants in a governor, and I believe they will make Bruce an effective and productive governor for all the people of Illinois. The people have spoken. All of us, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, must move forward together and support our new governor and his administration. The future of the state depends upon all of us helping them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to open it up to questions. Yes, Jay?
Bruce, there's not going to be much of a honeymoon for you in Springfield. You'll enter office with a $2 billion hole in the budget. Do you feel it's inevitable that you have to bring back part, if not all, of the temporary income tax increase in order to fill that hole? And do you think it needs to be done before you take office?
I look forward to working very closely with the General Assembly to solve all of our problems. One of the most immediate problems will be our budget and our financial condition and our financial health. We've had massive debt and deficits. We have a long-term structural deficit. And we have a real tragic lack of competitiveness, so we are one of the lowest growing states in America. And we can't fix any of our problems unless we are a growth state. And we are building businesses, creating high-quality careers for everyone who wants to work. That growth will generate our long-term revenue necessary to fix our financial problems.
But the short term, you've got a $2 billion hole.
That's right. And I look forward to working very closely with the General Assembly to solve our problems going forward. The discussions are already underway. I've had discussions with members of the General Assembly right after the election. I've had discussions with Democrats in the General Assembly as well as Republicans in the General Assembly. And I will be holding meetings with members of the General Assembly very intensively between now and January to begin to lay the groundwork to come up with real solutions, bipartisan solutions to solve our problems.
Mr. Rauner. Senator President Cullerton and Speaker Madigan, how do you prepare to move past that and work with them moving forward?
I've been a problem solver and a team builder my whole life. I'm excited to work very closely with members of the General Assembly. We are all elected to serve. We have a moral duty, we have an obligation to serve all the families, all the people of Illinois. Together, we share priorities. We share the need to have the best schools in America. We share the need to have high-quality jobs, high-quality careers for everyone in Illinois who wants to work. And we all have a duty. We have a moral obligation to make sure the tax burden on our families is reasonable, it's competitive, and that we spend taxpayers' money wisely. Taxpayers work hard to make their money. We have a duty to take as little of it from them as we can and make sure that every dollar we spend of theirs is spent very productively. I will work with the members of the General Assembly very closely. I've got good relationships with many members there, and I look forward to developing personal relationships with every member of the General Assembly to work together to solve problems.
Can we clear up the question about, did you speak to Speaker Madigan and did you speak to Senator Cullerton directly? And if not, have you now spoken to them? If you've spoken to some members, aren't they the key members? Do you need to speak to them?
On election night, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes before I came out to speak, I called the Chief of Staff for the Speaker. Did not reach him, left a long voicemail on my excitement and my honor to work with him, the Speaker, to speak with him at his earliest convenience to solve our problems on a bipartisan basis. We also called the Chief of Staff for the President, President Cullerton. We got him on the phone personally. We expressed our interest in working together closely and speaking with the President as soon as possible. He said he would pass that message on and our interest in working on a bipartisan basis together with the President. Since then, our staffs have been in good communication. We are in fact scheduling a meeting among the three of us in the near future. And I look forward to a very good, cordial working relationship. I have spoken with the President of the United States, President Obama, called, had a good discussion with him. I've had a good discussion on the phone with Mayor Rauner. He and I are working on scheduling a meeting together in the very near future. I also had a very good discussion with Senator Dick Durbin, Secretary Jesse White, Attorney General Lisa Madigan, and many members of the General Assembly on both sides of the aisle. It's a very exciting time in Illinois' history. I look forward to providing leadership and really encouraging bipartisan conversation and real solutions. I think we're going to get major things done for the people of Illinois.
Bruce, during the
Are you
campaign,
going to draw on your transition team for your cabinet, or is this kind of a tryout for your cabinet? How do you view it?
Well, the transition team is to help us with wisdom, with their expertise and their knowledge, and also their networks of relationships. Everyone standing before you today and everyone you'll see us announce in the next few days is a leader in the state of Illinois. They are highly respected. They have tremendous networks of talented individuals that they can call upon. And together we'll be having discussions about roles, possibilities, and possible people to recruit into key positions. We want to put together the most talented team of people ever assembled in state government.
Bruce, during the campaign, you made it quite clear that you did not want Pat Quinn as a lame duck governor seeking to make the 5% income tax permanent. You wanted the new legislature seated and the new governor in place for any consideration such as that.
Yes.
Do you hold to that belief now?
Absolutely. I hope that there will be no real significant action taken during the lame duck and with a governor on the way out. I hope that anything of significance that to be addressed can wait until mid-January so we can all deal with it together on a bipartisan basis, because the impact of major decisions can be so lasting and can have such a dramatic change on the future of the state. To have those decisions made by folks who are on their way out of office in their last few days in office, that would be very inappropriate.
Does that include the minimum wage, and have you spoken at all with Governor Pat Quinn himself?
The governor and I have not spoken, but he has expressed, as you heard, he's expressed his interest in having his staff help with the transition, and I thank the governor for that. And I also want to thank Governor Quinn for his many years of service to the people of Illinois.
Do you want the lame duck to act on a minimum wage?
My position on the minimum wage is very clear. I believe it very strongly. I support raising the minimum wage. I hope and believe the General Assembly should and will raise the minimum wage. But what I strongly recommend that we do is include it in an overall reform package that increases Illinois' competitiveness. So we raise the minimum wage, but we get workers' comp reform, tort reform, and tax reform as part of that overall effort, so we can grow high-quality careers, high-quality jobs, and Illinois can be a growth state again.
How long do you think that will
Without
take?
all those additional It doesn't seem like you're gonna have a lot of time to plug that $2 billion hole. Is it your preference to do it with an incremental increase of that 3.75 income tax rate, or all cuts? What is your preference at this point?
Our plan is very clear. I'm going to work very closely with the General Assembly to come up with short-term solutions and long-term solutions to our financial trouble. And we'll be working, we're starting that process right now. That dialogue is begun and will be ongoing.
Rauner, can I ask you about the property tax freeze? That resonated with many voters in Chicago and the suburbs. Can you shed some light? You declined during the campaign to talk about how the state would do it, since that's a tax largely levied by school boards, counties, and municipalities. What's the state role in freezing property taxes? What's your plan?
Okay, so today in Illinois, we have basically, Illinois and New Jersey basically have the highest property taxes in America. And it's punishing, it's hurting Illinois families terribly. As I've traveled in the campaign, I've talked to families who've had to sell their homes and move because they can't afford their property taxes. And I've spoken with small business owners who've told me they're moving out of Illinois and moving to other states because the property taxes on their building, on their factory, or on their transportation center, just unaffordable. And states like Tennessee or Texas or Indiana are much more affordable and allows them to compete in their industry. We have got to change that. We need to get a handle on our property taxes. Now, this is going to take bipartisan solution, and the structure needs to be determined by the state, but we need to work with local officials as well. And again, I have called throughout the campaign to form a task force to streamline all layers of government, not just state government, but county government, municipal government, and our school district structure. Illinois has the greatest number of units of government in America. I believe it's about 7,000 units of government, if I'm not mistaken. And we have tremendous inefficiencies and restrictions that cause higher spending at one level of government and forced with unfunded mandates and regulations on other levels of government. To get a handle on our property taxes, we need to fix that problem, and we'll be forming a bipartisan task force to deal with that issue very quickly.
Do you have a preferred proposal? I mean, would it be that the state would step in with a multiplier, or where the state would freeze assessments? What's your preferred?
You listed a couple options. There are 2 or 3 other options. Again, on this, I will work with the General Assembly and with local leaders. There are 3 or 4 good ways to try to deal with the issue. I am not going to advocate any one in particular. There are several good ways to do it, and we can use some other states who dealt with it effectively as role models for us.
Mr. Rauner, how important is an expansion of charter schools, a dramatic expansion of charter schools, and an introduction of school vouchers to your efforts to improve education and reform it, especially in low-income Hispanic and African-American communities?
Well, Evelyn Sanguinetti and I both believe that education is the most important thing we do together as a community. Our schools in Illinois need to be properly funded. We have been cutting education funding in Illinois for years, and that's wrong. We need to put our money as the #1 priority in our schools, and that's K-12 schools, that's our universities. Today we have some of the most unaffordable in-state tuition for our universities of any state in America. That's wrong.
But what about charter schools and school vouchers?
And also early childhood education. We should be the best in America with our early childhood education. On charter schools and vouchers, there is an important role for charter schools, and I support charter schools. I do not believe we should have a cap on charter schools in Illinois, and I believe charter schools should receive equal per pupil funding to standard public schools because they're both public schools available to any student in the community. And so I support charter schools. I also support scholarship / voucher programs and as well tax rebates or tax support for low-income families so their children can afford to attend other schools that maybe fit them better. The critical element of our plan is to encourage opportunities for school choice for all parents. Higher income parents can afford to choose a parochial school, a private school, a public school, homeschooling. And I believe all families should be afforded choices so they can choose a public school and education for their child that fits their child best. There are no perfect solutions. Charter schools are not a panacea. Voucher programs and scholarships are not a panacea, but we need to develop options and alternatives, and we need to create school choice so that every child has an opportunity for a high-quality education.
Mr. Rauner,
Yes.
does the support for the minimum wage ballot question, the advisory ballot referendum, does that motivate you any more to get the minimum wage done quicker? Because there are plenty of people on the ballot who supported you and voted for that question by the numbers. Does that make it more of a priority?
Raising the minimum wage is a priority for us, as I've said. And the critical thing is we do that in an overall context where we drive up Illinois' competitiveness, as I've always said. That is the critical priority. More competition, more economic growth, more vitality. That's the key. Not only should we raise the minimum wage, that's very important to helping struggling families, and I support it, but we also need to increase Illinois' competitiveness, because that's the real answer, so folks can rise beyond the minimum wage, not get stuck at only the minimum wage, because frankly, no family can have a good life on the minimum wage.
But does that ballot question make it more pertinent?
And here's the critical point. We want every family to be maximizing their net family income. Net family income is what we should be measuring. That's been declining in Illinois. We need net family income growing. That means we need a competitive economy. That we need strong growth. Businesses competing to hire workers. Higher minimum wage is part of that, but we need to reduce the tax burden and have more growth. That's all together, and that's a top priority. It's a top priority for us.
Can I just ask you, maybe I'm miscounting, but it looks as if there's only one labor union leader on this particular group here. Is there a message to labor unions that you have today?
Actually, I think we have more than you'll see a lot more as our transition team rolls out. I have the same message to union members as well as every other voter, every citizen, every taxpayer in the state. Help is on the way. We are going to improve the quality of life for every family, union households, non-union households, all families. I'm working for every family. I'm dedicated to getting net family take-home pay up in Illinois, getting a booming economy in Illinois, that making the best schools in America available to our public school children throughout Illinois, and ending the system of corruption, cronyism, and patronage that puts an undue tax burden on every family in Illinois. We're working for everyone, everyone.
Bruce, would you be disappointed if the legislature passed a minimum wage increase bill and Governor Pat Quinn signed it before January 12th? Would you be disappointed if that were to happen without those pro-business reforms that you've talked about?
I think it's critically important that we have a comprehensive solution. If we only do one thing and not the others, we could end up hurting many families that we're really trying to help.
So you would be disappointed if that were to happen?
So what I've been very consistent, very clear. I want to have the minimum wage increased, and I support raising the minimum wage. We should do it in the context of increasing Illinois' competitiveness so families aren't stuck at the minimum wage, or families don't lose their jobs because of the minimum wage, because frankly, minimum wage doesn't matter if somebody's unemployed. We need jobs, we need growth, we need maximum opportunity for every family, and we need a comprehensive solution. That's critical.
Mr. Rauner.
Did you personally vote for the ballot measure on minimum wage?
I did.
Does that mean workman's comp and tort reform? When you say competitive, do you mean there must be workman's comp and tort reform?
Yes.
Because
those issues are hurting the competitiveness of Illinois. That's what I've got.
You're just
Have
coming.
you looked into whether anyone involved in your campaign had any role in the robocalls that went out to Chicago elected judges last weekend?
No, I've heard just a little bit about that. I don't know much at all about it, but I hope if there's any issue there, it gets fully investigated, and if there's any improprieties, that it gets dealt with very harshly.
On the
Thanks very much, everybody.
campaign. On the
Appreciate your time.
campaign.
Look forward to going to work for you. Thank you.